So Matty, we're sat here in the YDO office after Saturday's game was cancelled or postponed due to the ongoing coronavirus and everything that's happening around that. Just describe sort of the decision behind that, because I think everybody understands that was the right decision to make. The RFU put that to the players to say that you could make that decision. Do you feel like that was the right decision to make for you and for the players?
Yeah, it was obviously it was a very difficult decision. We sat down with the lads. The club let the guys pretty much kind of make the call on it, because we were the ones kind of travelling at the end of the day. It was a couple of guys who kind of like really wanted to travel, but then we've got kind of like 3 or 4 dads that are experiencing their first Christmas with newborns, and they were very hesitant about it. And then a couple of other kind of people had families with kind of like who were coming up with like illnesses, or we're kind of struggling a little bit around the whole kind of like COVID kind of system. So we knew that if we were going to take those kind of people out of the team, we weren't going to really have a strengthened team to play. And we thought, well, obviously being so kind of close to Christmas, it was the kind of the point in kind of risking it. So that was our decision at the end of the day. Obviously it was tough on Heath, because obviously they've already come to us. They probably had kind of like Christmas, like every kind of other club, they probably had Christmas plans all sorted, but unfortunately it's just what we're kind of living in, the world we're living in at the moment, and that's the decision that we had to make.
Yeah, just throwing it back on at the start of the season, of course your first season as a head coach, you'd waited so long to be able to do that. How would you, now that you sat with a couple of weeks off, how would you review the first half of the season? Have you enjoyed being a head coach here?
It's been, to be honest, it's been really frustrating. I've never been kind of involved with like such selection kind of dramas. Guys not kind of putting their hand up, but then kind of like dropping out because of kind of certain kind of circumstances, and guys been away and kind of having to ring around kind of people on a Thursday, Friday night trying to fill kind of positions. Yeah. It's been kind of it's been very difficult. But the guys who have kind of put their hand up, and the guys that have played and the guys who have trained, it's been kind of fantastic. But that's the kind of frustrating thing. It probably could be a lot better. But with obviously what's happened over the last kind of couple of years, and it's not just our club, it's loads of clubs that are in the same predicament, is we just don't have the numbers and the depth over what we've had in the previous kind of couple of years. And we can obviously always get a first team out, but it's our seconds, our Vikings, and probably Danesmans who probably kind of played 3 or 4 games this half of the season, who where our kind of fringe first team players should be going down to play. But they haven't been able to kind of do that week in, week out, and obviously they get frustrated with it, and like everyone's got jobs and lives outside, and if you're playing 1 week on and 3 weeks off, obviously it's very frustrating with teams who can't travel, but then also kind of us not struggling to get kind of like good, decent, strong kind of teams out. So it has been definitely a very frustrating kind of start to my kind of coaching career. But as I said, like it's when we do get the buy-in and we do get the lads, it's been kind of fantastic. Like that Moortown win not last weekend, the weekend before, was absolutely great, and the Durham City last kind of gasp try to win, and then obviously to kind of have a night out with the lads afterwards and really kind of enjoy that occasion is what kind of like it was all about. The Driftfield kind of like first game of the season, picking up a draw there. So we have had some really kind of good tight kind of games. But I feel like we've just kind of left maybe a little bit out there because we just haven't had the kind of the depth and the numbers and that what we kind of used to, and what we kind of desire to have.
Yeah, and looking back at the last couple of months, you've lost quite a few quite influential players, the likes of Jonty Holloway, Geordie Wakeham, Harry Cartwright, Charlie Cartwright. They've all decided to go elsewhere or not play. Carlos Roberts is now finished with the club after a really successful time. For you, it's a lot of change, isn't it? For you, you can't nail a squad together of 15 that are going to be there every week. That must also be a challenge for you as a head coach, because you've got to put your best side out every week to get a result.
Yeah, that's right. We can't build any momentum when we're changing kind of 4 or 5 guys each week. What we are doing as a club is we're building depth. I think pretty much the first half of the season we've used over 40 players within our kind of first team, which on kind of previous occasions we've probably gone the whole kind of season and used kind of 32 to 35 kind of players. So we're lucky that we're giving guys opportunity and guys are taking those kind of opportunities. We're lucky that we've got a couple of kind of Scarborough College teachers that have kind of stepped up, and Joe Davies and Pat Roberts. They've put their hand up to play a little bit more, which is obviously fantastic for us. Finding Carlos and Dylan was great. James Long, Tom Macon, guys like that who haven't been in and around the rugby club have kind of come back in and got kind of like heavily involved. Limo as well, Ian Braithwaite, has come into the fold this year, straight from kind of like the seconds and thirds over the last kind of couple of years. And he's been kind of a fantastic kind of find, and he's kind of really bought into our kind of system as well. So it's been great. We've found those kind of guys, but yeah, losing kind of Harry, Charlie, Geordie, Jonty, guys like that who are kind of big kind of leaders and big kind of players. It's just trying to kind of find those kind of players to kind of fill those kind of positions week in, week out, which is obviously kind of been pretty kind of tough and stressful.
Yeah, when you hung the boots up and decided to take on the coaching role, did you think that you'd be putting them back on so soon and playing a role? Because you have had to play and start in some games and coach from being on the pitch.
Yeah, I've always kind of said I haven't really kind of enjoyed the kind of player-coach kind of roles. I've been with a couple of player-coaches over my kind of time of playing, and I really don't feel it's work, so you can't really kind of do both. And you kind of get frustrated within kind of doing both, because you can't kind of really kind of go down kind of one line. You've got to kind of mix yourselves in between kind of players and playing. So it's obviously frustrating, but playing in the front row, we need to kind of put a front row kind of team out week in, week out. And then also our seconds need to make sure that they've got a front row as well. So obviously there's a couple of games where our seconds have been a little bit short, so a couple of the lads who have been kind of benching for us have got to go down and kind of help them out. Obviously I can't go down and help seconds out, with obviously still kind of coaching the first team. So I've played a couple. I wouldn't say that I've kind of enjoyed it too much, but as I said, like we're there at the end of the day, and if it's need be, then obviously I'll chuck the boots on and kind of hopefully kind of fulfil that kind of role of what we need to as a team.
And just finally, Matty, there's so many games we've had this year. We've had highs, we've had lows, tough away games, amazing home games. What's been your most favourite moment this season? Now, for me, it's got to be Durham City. That was an incredible performance, but we've come close with Morley here, where we won, Moortown as well. What sort of the best feeling that you've had from a game, and what's been your most favourite game that you've sort of been able to watch this season?
I think performance kind of wise, I think the Moortown game was a great performance. To hold them to kind of to 0 points in that second half, and we were playing into the wind, was fantastic. It was great to kind of be involved in. But then also I think the Driftfield, the first game of the season, where we kind of didn't really have much of a pre-season, because obviously a couple of games were kind of cancelled, so we weren't really sure where all the lads were at. And to come away with a draw, they're pretty much now kind of like flying high at the top of the league. That kind of true grit and determination was kind of like a great place to kind of start our kind of season at. So those are two definitely that kind of stood out. And as you said, like the Morley game and the Durham City game away, where Aaron scored that kind of last kind of play as well. But that obviously, because we had the night out planned and everything else as well, I think that kind of it all kind of added up to obviously be a great kind of weekend for the lads and a great kind of team building opportunity for us.
And yeah, of course, we don't really know what the future holds now in the next couple of months. A bit quite uncertain times, and we wait to see the development, obviously, of the new COVID variant. But I guess you'll hope that sort of the 2-3 weeks that you've got off, there may be an opportunity that by the time we come back to playing, there's been a drop in cases, and maybe we'll be able to get on with the season. But you know, what do you think will happen? Do you think we may restart in February, or do you think it's just going to be up to the RFU?
Yeah, it's tough. I think obviously with everything kind of happening, I can't see how it can probably kind of continue. That kind of, at least in January, I think. But it's what do they do with the season? Do we go back to May? Because obviously there's going to be kind of 3 or 4 games you're going to miss out. And people are going to miss out with revenue at their home kind of matches, which obviously everyone needs right now. So it's going to be very difficult to balance it from the RFU kind of point of view. But then also we need to try and keep everyone kind of safe. It's the world that we're kind of living in at the moment. So we need to make sure that obviously we're just doing everything kind of at the best of what we can, following all the guidelines. I know that obviously the club have gone back into their kind of guidelines of what we kind of had pre kind of opening back up again. So we're going to do everything that we can, us as a club and us as players, to make sure that we're keeping each other kind of safe and making sure that all our families are safe as well. So hopefully the RFU are going to take that into kind of fruition, and we'll kind of, as we said, we'll play it by ear and see what happens.